Alright, Shalom Lord Christ, this is Officer Yahweh. This is Isupk Monday night history class, and today we're going to talk about the history of the Puerto Ricans and the Taino Indians. Alright, anybody know what tribe they're from? The Tainos, anybody know what tribe they're from? The 12 tribes? You know, sis? You don't know back there? She had her hand up. You know what tribe they are? You know what tribe they are from? You know what tribe the Puerto Ricans are from? Or the Tainos? You gotta look up here, see where's that? Huh? I can't see back there. There you go, right there. What does it say? There you go, sis. The tribe of Ephraim. Alright? So, the Tainos, okay. I'll get to this a little bit right here. Alright, the first inhabitants of Puerto Rico were hunter-gatherers who reached the island more than 1,000 years before the arrival of the Spanish. The Arawak Indians who developed the Taino culture had also settled there by 1000 CE. A clan-based Taino lived in small villages led by cacique, or no, cacique, that's how you say cacique. I lost where I was. Or chief. They had a limited knowledge of agriculture, but grew such domesticated tropical crops as pineapples, cassava, and sweet potatoes. It's funny how they said they had a limited knowledge, but the one thing that they had them do was grow sugar and vegetables. So how do you have a limited knowledge, but you had them growing it for you, right? But it just shows you how they try to take away what we are good at doing. They're the ones that can't grow anything, right? When like I think I said it before, but like grapes. Grapes are supposed to be the size of apples, and apples are supposed to be the size of like watermelons. But the reason why they're not is because the wicked is ruling, and they don't follow by the law. The law, well, God said you're supposed to only till the ground for 6 years. The seventh year, you give it a rest. Everything gets a rest, right? You got to get the ground a rest. Replenish yourself. The Most High said that He gonna give you enough on the 6th year, so on the 7th year you'll have enough. He said He would do that, right? So that's why the plans, because they Shalom on Christ, huh?
Shalom on Christ. That's true. Boss, I'll check it in.
Alright, go ahead. I think you ran out of sheets on that attendance. And mashallah, can you make sure you let who should have Kasayad? Text Kasayad for me. You need some more attendance sheets on that paper and that book. Okay. I think I used the last one last week. Okay. Alright. So now where was I at? We was talking about the natives, the Indians, right? I mean the Puerto Ricans, right? So oh yeah, they were good at planting these things. They were good at doing all of it. That's why they used us to harvest the crops for them, because we were good at it, right? If black people, which is black and Hispanics and Native Americans, right? If we weren't good at planting and agriculture, why did He have us do it? That don't make any sense, right? But like I said, I think I was saying earlier about tilling the ground. That's what I was talking about, tilling the ground. You're not supposed to give it a rest so it can replenish itself. And if you don't do that, you see everything shrinks. Now they're saying that there's not enough food to feed everybody. You got those eugenics people trying to say that They need to cut down the population. There's not enough food to feed everybody on the earth. And the reason why there's not enough food to feed everybody is because the wicked is ruling. That's why. God made this earth. He made it himself. Right? He knows people supposed to be here. He's the one in control of making the plants grow and what they can grow. He's the one in control of it. But since they don't, when they plant the ground, they're not thinking about the Most High when they're doing these things. They're thinking about profit. So when you do that and you take all the nutrients out the ground, it can't bear fruit the way it's supposed to. Alright? Oh yeah, they want it to go fast. They want the ones to go fast. And then over time, you breed out the good plants too. Right? Alright, let's see here. They had sweet potatoes and they had seafood. In the late 15th century, 20 to 50,000 Taino lived in Puerto Rico, which they call Boricans. That's like where they get a Boricua from. The Boricua. The Taino occasionally warded off attacks by their Carib neighbors from the islands in the south and east, including the Virgin Islands and Vieques Island. So just talking about basically the Benjamin brothers that's over there in the rest of the Caribbean. They would fight, they was fighting, it's like anybody. They get there, they'll fight each other off and okay, you ain't gonna mess with you no more. Just like the Mayans we've been going over before, the Mayans and Aztecs, they had wars amongst each other, right? Little small wars, but like when they got done warring, it was cordial, right? When you war with them, with our oppressor, they take you over. And then they become you.
Right.
A lot of people like in the cities of like Puerto Rico and Santo Domingo, those cities right there, a lot of them ain't even Puerto Ricans or Simeonites. Or Simeonites or Ephraimites. A lot of them aren't. They're either Edomites, you know what I'm saying? Because they took their women. So a lot of them is Edomites. I'm saying a strong majority of them is our people. But most of here's the thing. Here's how you can kind of tell. Like usually the ones that came from like the deeper into the villages and all of that, because that's where they ran when they was trying to get away from the Spaniards. So they ran to get away from all of the oppression. Because just like, you know how we had racism here, they had the same thing there. So they were trying to flee that. They ended up fleeing over to the countryside, trying to get away from the city. So not a lot of actual. I'm put like this. It's a larger amount of Edomites in those big cities like Santo Domingo and the big cities of Puerto Rico like San Juan. There's our brothers and sisters mixed in there, but there's a lot of Edomites in there, right? Let's see where we at now. And then, guess who came? They were living in, pretty peace. It was stories that you might know what Puerto Rico means. Go ahead.
I would say it means rich poor.
There you go, rich poor. They named it that because jewels and rubies were washing up on the shore. So they named it rich poor. So they seen all of that. They were like, we can get some money here. So they started bringing more ships, but we gonna get into all of that. All right. So you remember Christopher Columbus? He came to Hispaniola first, which is the Dominican Republic, right? He came there first. So he left Spain. He went up there. He took a couple of Native Americans with him, and he left about like his ship had ran into like a sand dune, and it damaged the ship, right? And he left a bunch of sailors there, right? Because they didn't have enough room to fit them and go back to Spain. So he said, okay, y'all kick it here with the Tainos, you know what I'm saying? Because they see these Caucasians, and like, I ain't never seen people like this before. Look at you know, blonde hair, blue eyes. They never seen it before. They thought they were gods, right? That's what all of the northern tribes thought. They thought they were gods because they never seen the people that looked like them before, right? And came over here, but then when they stayed here, they ended up trying to take over the people. There's 37 of them. They going around taking their women, raping them, doing all this evil. And then what they said, no way a God can be like this. So when Christopher Columbus came back, all they behind was dead. All of the Tainos killed them. Right? You're not gonna take all women. Right? What else we get it to? So all right, this is Christopher Columbus in 1493. He left Spain on a second voyage to the Indies with a large expedition of 17 ships and about 1,500 men. At the island of Guadalupe, the Spaniards rescued several Taino prisoners from whom the Carib had taken from Puerto, and Columbus agreed to return them to their island. On November 19, 1493, Columbus anchored in a bay on the west coast of Puerto, which he promptly renamed San Juan Bautista. Of course, they go, how do you go to somebody else's land and name it? I'm going to go to your house and name it the house of Yahweh. That make any sense to you? I'm just going to rename it. Right? Well, they got some stones. I put like that. They're going to rename your stuff. Right? All right, San Juan Bautista, St. John the Baptist, right? And claimed it for the Spanish monarchs, Ferdinand and Isabella. Expeditionary spent 2 days on the island before sailing westward to Hispaniola, where they established the first permanent settlement in the New World. So now he started making settlements over there in Hispaniola, which remember Hispaniola is the Dominican Republic. All right. Let's get to some more. For 15 years, San Juan Bautista. See how they changed it on here. Now it's San Juan. It was Boricua, but now it's San Juan Bautista. It was neglected except for occasional visit by a ship putting in for supplies. In 1508, Juan Ponce de Leon, who had accompanied Columbus and worked to colonize Hispaniola, was granted permission to explore the island. On the north coast, Ponce de Leon found an exceptionally well protected bay that could harbor a large number of sailing vessels. On high ground beside the bay, he founded Capara, the island's first town and the site of his first mining and agricultural operations. Right? By 1521, the town was moved to an islet at the northern end of the harbor and renamed Puerto Rico, the rich port. Through time and common usage of the port, became now known as San Juan, while the name Puerto Rico came to be applied to the whole island. So now he named Puerto Rico the whole island, which at first he was talking about a rich port, was at the northern end of the harbor, but he was bringing in all of the ships. They just said, okay, now we're going to make it all Puerto Rico, and this city is San Juan. Remember, the Taino thought them as gods, right? The Taino soon lost reverence for the Spanish protectors who expected the Indians to act as vassals, paying tribute in gold and food, as well as accepting instruction in the Christian religion. So they thought highly of them, they thought they were gods, right? So now they trying to force them to become Christian, right? They wanted them to pay tribute to them, like, they like, who the hell is you? They wanted gold and all of that, and food. They wanted to be, because you know how our oppressor is. They know that they're the ones supposed to be the slaves. Like in their spirit, they know it, but they don't want to be the slave. They want to be the one ruling. So that's how they think of the Tainos. The Tainos like, nah, this is us. We just being nice because we have, cause you know, like our culture is we have a very welcoming culture, right? If you're interested in learning to be with the Hispanics, they typically invite you in, right? You can go all over the 12 tribes. You go to Jamaica. You go to all the places. Typically, the people invite you in. I ain't got a lot of crookedness and stuff like that. They got, you got the drug trade and all of that. In some places like Venezuela and stuff like that. We know that. But as far as the people, they very welcoming in, right? Because we have a culture of that. We have a law that says you're supposed to, the traveler or the stranger that's moving in, that's like, that's traveling, you gotta put them up and feed them, right? If you notice, that's like I would watch people traveling to like Hispanic, places, whatever they have Hispanics at, and they all welcome you in, talk to you, feed you, they even give you free food. That's just how they are. That's how we all are, right? Remember back in the days, you used to be able to go to everybody's house and just go eat, right? They'll come pick you up. We just stopped being that, the last 20 years? For real? We used to be able to just go over like, I remember my family was telling me that they used to leave their doors unlocked. People would just come over and just stay the night. They don't even know them from anybody. Like, certain things, like, you like hitchhikers, right? You can hitchhike from across the country because we trusted each other. We had a law with each other, right? You would just, like, you had family members just show up at the door, you let them come in, feed them, all of that. But now we don't do that no more. Your family members show up at your house, you can close the door on their face. Like, well, I don't know why you didn't even call, all right? But that wasn't our culture, right? Our culture got stripped from us because they made us hate each other. They literally made us hate each other. And they did that with Christianity. Because look at what Christianity does. They said that they have to pay tribute to them. Not just welcome them in as a stranger, pay tribute. You know what tributes mean? You giving something to somebody you think of higher as you. Right? And they started seeing the devil in them. Well, they are the devil, but you know what I'm saying. They start seeing their ways. They're like, nah, you not it. So they lost that reverence for them. So, and they didn't want to take that Christian religion because there'll be a Christians. You know what they say about Christians, right? You know when they came over here. If you wasn't a Christian, they felt like they could just come and just take your stuff. Because you wasn't a Christian, you was considered a heathen, right? So they feel like they could just come and take your land and take you and make you a slave, right? Meanwhile, European diseases to which the Spaniards were largely immune, right? And maltreatment had begun to devastate the Taino population. In 1511, the Indians rebelled, but only had temporary success against the better armed Spanish, who again subjugated them. The Spanish subsequently brought Indian slaves from nearby islands and black slaves from Africa, which they call us from Africa, of course, from Africa in order to fully staff in their place of minds. So basically, here's what's going on. The Tainos, they were, because of the treatment and the diseases, they were dying very quickly. So they had to try to replace the slaves. So when they started getting us from Africa, with a lot of times, which, dang, I forgot to bring this book, but a lot of this right here is false about them coming from Africa. There's actually a book called The Black Indians. It would tell you that the first slaves that they see, black slaves, like darker skin tone and not the native people, came from Europe. They did not come from Africa. They didn't start going to Africa until the 1600s. For at least largely. I'm not saying that it never happened. but at least not largely. You know what I'm saying? That's when the actual transatlantic slave, like from Africa to here, started coming right around the 1600s. It did not happen during the 1500s. They wasn't able to bring anybody here because what was happening was we was coming to get along with the Tainos and all of the natives, and we was beating the hell out of them. So they had to stop all of that until they get a stronger grip on the Tainos, and of course convert them to Christianity. Now it's not just the Tainos, it's everybody. It really happened stronger in America, but you got to think like there were more than one country involved in the slave trade. You had like England, the Brits, you had Spain, the Portuguese. I even think parts of Russia might even been on it. Like you had all of the European countries in on this. So they each would have like their own little spot. Like, England and Great Britain, it was like America, the Hispanics, this were the Spaniards, and the French went to the Caribbean islands, right? And the Portuguese went down to to Brazil, right? That's when they took over Brazil. So it was like everybody had their own little spots. They would sail, like I think France or something. I can't remember who, but somebody owned Florida first, and then that's why Florida was like a safe haven for slaves, because it wasn't owned by America at that time, right? So they ended up selling it to America, then Florida became part of America, and then, you got the Virgin Islands, right? You got like the British Virgin Islands, you got the regular Virgin Islands, they all owned by different countries, right? Just like the same way it is now. Like over there in Panama and all of that, people think like, well, of course, like America runs it, but a lot of that land over there is owned by the East Indians. Jamaica too. That's why they were wearing the dreads. Because there's a lot of East Indians over there, right? That's where they get that style from them, right? We gonna cover each one of them. I want y'all to know this is not a 12 tribes breakdown, right? Cam Kakdasa already did a 12 tribes breakdown, and I cannot do better than that. Like, he laid it out, man. I mean, it was thorough. So this is just a history of what happened in all of these particular, to all of the different tribes. Just like telling them what happened during, a little bit before, during, and like the modern era after, the captivity, the slavery at least, the carnal slavery, I guess you would call it, right? Let's see here. So, like, what they would do is they would take slaves from all different places. Like, it was slaves coming from North America, South America, and they would like switch them out, sell them in different places like that, right? They would just cross them and sell them different places because when they got together, they would try to take over, so they didn't want them to know the lay of the land. Because I think the same thing that was happening with the Native Americans here was going on in Puerto Rico. It's just not as much land mass, of course. But the same thing was going on in Hispaniola and all of that. They wanted to try to keep them from taking over. They was rebelling. All right. Let's see here. It says, however, gold production markedly declined after the 1530s, and many of the Europeans migrated elsewhere. So the gold left. And when the gold left, that's where they finally left. Right? Because they took all the gold, out of the island. They took it all out. Now you can't even find a gold nugget in Puerto Rico. Now they didn't got every little piece of gold. Can't even find a golden flake. All right? Those who remained set up sugarcane and ginger plantations with their African slaves. but the colony continued to lead a precarious existence. Carib groups from neighboring islands made frequent raids, carrying off food and slaves by destroying property. Puerto Rico was further ravaged by disease, and it was plundered by French, British, and Dutch pirates. During the mid-16th century, which the middle of the 1500s, French forces repeatedly burned and sacked Saint-Germain, the island's second settlement. Increasing numbers of colonists left the island. So now they decimated the population. Now they were able to be taken over by everybody else, right? They was able to be taken over by pirates, other brothers that they had. The Arawaks was able to do stuff. But even if you can see the Arawaks, they just came and took a little bit of gold, some food. Israel and took some food and stuff. But the pirates, they don't tell you about the pirates. They came taking people. They came and molested the women there, raped the women, man, took them, right? In the second half of the 16th century, Spain, recognizing the strategic importance of Puerto Rico, undertook to convert San Juan into a military outpost by using a financial subsidy from the Mexican mines. Initially, they built a fortified palace for the governor called La Fortaleza, which just means the fortress, followed by the massive San Felipe del Morro castle, which is perfectly located to dominate the narrow entrance to the harbor. Finally, they added a stronger and larger fortress, San Cristobal, to the northeast, on the Atlantic side of the city in the early 17th century. The city was surrounded by a stone wall 25 feet high and 18 feet thick. That's a big wall. Two parts of it would still stand. These defenses made San Juan almost impenetrable. Here's a little bit of the fortress, you can see. A little bit of fortress that's left. All right. In 1595, Sir Francis Drake attacked the city with a sizable fleet, but failed to silence his guns. 3 years later, the British soldier George Clifford, 3rd Earl of Cumberland, captured the city, but was soon forced to abandon it after his troops fell victim to disease, probably dysentery. In 1625, the Dutchman Boudewijn Hendrik captured and burned the town, but failed to subdue El Morro, where the governor had taken refuge. San Juan, the most exposed military outpost guarding Spain's New World Empire, received political and economic attention from the mother country. However, the island's rural inhabitants, or Ibaros, were typically ignored by Spain and scorned by the residents of San Juan. So that's the people that, if you remember I said earlier, the people that lived in the countryside, those are, how do I put it? Those are where the more, I guess, for lack of a better term, purest Israelite brothers is, or Tainos are. The rest of them are more mixed in, assimilated. The ones that still was in San Juan and all of that, they're kind of mixed in. Those are more like the Martin Luther Kings. That's over there. They kind of want to be assimilated. They want to consider themselves as Caucasian now. They feel like they upper class, right? They're studious because we mingle with the Caucasians. We mingle with them. So that's how they look down. So just like it is with black people. The people that hang out with, Bill Clinton and all of them, they think highly of themselves, think lower of all the rest of the black people. The same way, right? Now, not all of them are actually Puerto Ricans or, native-born Puerto Ricans. A lot of them is, their father was a Spaniard, laid with lay with a Puerto Rican woman or whatever, and that's what happened. They had a baby, and this became a new devil on earth. All right. All right. The Habaros thus fended for themselves and cultivated their small landholdings, as the French, British, Danish, and Dutch fought over and settled the Lesser Antilles. During the 17th and 18th centuries, the colonial authorities of San Juan rarely ventured beyond their walled defenses for fear of buccaneer attacks. However, the Habaros, ignoring the edicts of Spain, prospered somewhat by trading clandestinely, which means, like secretly, with non-Spanish merchants. Ginger, hides, sugarcane, tobacco, and cattle from the island were in great demand. The settlers' contact with foreigners did not turn them away from their mother country, as the Spanish crown had feared. Instead, they remained loyal and willing to participate in military expeditions. So, as you see there, like I said, what happened with a lot of all of the takeovers and all of the military attacks, when they came over here, they fled to the mountains. So like, they fled over to the mountains. Like that's where, remember when that what was it, a hurricane that hit Puerto Rico? They were in those islanders that was on the mountains, trying to, they made like their own villages out there, man. They made their own villages out there. And those are the ones that end up dying the most because they didn't have, anything to kind of protect them. They were just out there, right? All right, any questions on that so far? Any questions on that? Y'all good?
So I got a question. So when they came over, when the Spaniards came over, did they say what kind of diseases that the Taino Indians was catching from them?
Syphilis, smallpox. They didn't know what the hell was going on. They came with this shit. They come and they looking. They got bumps all on their bodies and just getting everything, man. So they think typhus or that what's the one that you get with a T? Typhoid. But it's another one that you got to get the little shot when you go to work at the hospital.
Tetanus shot?
No, not a tetanus shot. The little stuff they got to do a test for you. It's like a lung disease. Tuberculosis. That's another one. They gave them tuberculosis, a bunch of diseases. That of course, some of it might have been accidental. Some of it was definitely on purpose. We all know that's been established, right? And what else did they do to them? If they didn't get it, like you had to have a certain amount, just like they did with us. If you had to have a certain amount of cotton, right? What they do to you?
What you say if they didn't have enough?
Yeah, like you were a slave and you picking cotton and it wasn't heavy enough. What happened?
It's like they'll hang you?
Probably in some cases, yeah.
It's like it's a whip.
They will whip you, right? Well, if they didn't have enough gold, they was cutting off the Taino's hands and letting them bleed to death. Them bastards is cruel, right? They cut their damn hand off. They don't even try to stop the bleed. They just let them bleed to death. Right there. Because it's like main arteries right here. If you don't try to stop it and clot it up, that's it. Right? They did them terribly, man. Like, the one thing I will say, like our slavery is a little bit easier to find, like stuff that they did, but it's like what happened to the islands, you know what I'm saying? To the islands and everything other than America, like North America, where we at in the United States of America, it's like it's hard to really find a lot of the details that went on there. Probably because of a lot of it is in Spanish anyway, because the Spanish conquistadors, the ones that might have wrote some of it, you can't, it's in Spanish. So it's not a lot of knowledge there. But don't worry, I got some of it for you. So we got some of it for you. All right, now let's go here. There was a woman named Anacaona, right? Anacaona. She was the wife of one of the chiefs, right? And they, of course, killed her husband. So now she was the person that was like the chief in his stead, right? So let's see here. The history of colonization was usually told by the victors, Just think about the history class you got in school when we learned Christopher Columbus and the discovery of America. We all hear about his eagerness to make the journey and how he never gave up no matter what, no matter how much he was refused funding. We also learn about the horrible perils these men went through during their journeys and all the exact dates and facts about how they managed to colonize the new world. It's all about them and their deeds, while the native population tends to play a secondary role in the story. But that's not the use with the Spanish settlement or in the island shared by Haiti and the Dominican Republic, where one of the founding characters, praised for her bravery and pride, is the inspiration of songs and stories about her life. She was Anacaona, a woman who opposed the Spanish invaders and became a local hero. Born in 1474 in the chiefdom of Aragua in Hispaniola, Anacaona was born and raised. Hold on. Just take me out of it. She was born and raised to rule. She was the sister of the Aragua chief and wife of the Maguano one, making her one of the most powerful Taino caciques. It's said that in 1496, one of the voyages Columbus made to Hispaniola, he was received by both Anacaona and her brother Bahichio. And Bartolome de las Casas, Historia de las Indias, he reports the meeting as cordial and friendly, with the Taino being so generous to their guests as to offer them a great feast and celebration. Then the chief brothers were taken on a small trip as special guests on one of Columbus's ships. The amicable relationship wasn't as nice as it might have sounded, of course. This got the Spaniards a great deal in which the Taino would pay tribute to them in resources in exchange for relative peace, which of course that didn't happen. So when they came there, they said, okay, we'll leave you alone if you just give us gold and such and such, such and such, whatever we want. You give it to us, we'll leave you alone. So us believing the devils, right? We said, okay, we'll give you this little stuff and, we'll be at peace, right? They didn't care about gold and rubies and jewels. They didn't care about it like that, right? They just wanted to live peacefully, right? So he said, okay, we'll let you have that, and then, we'll be at peace with you. But of course, what does the devil do? He gonna lie, right? The Spaniards, as we knew, pillaged the island through massacres and slavery. And the Taino weren't going to allow this to happen just like that. After her brother's death, Anacaona became chief of the Aragua. It was around this time when her husband was captured by the Spaniards under suspicion of organizing an attack on their settlement, which, though there is no evidence to deny or prove it, is very much likely he was. Coronado was sent along with other noblemen of his tribe to Spain. He died in a shipwreck. Despite both tragedies, Anacaona was now chief of both territories. So her brother and her husband died, they both, when her husband is captured and her brother just, died in a shipwreck, right? She was determined to do the best for her people. she decided that fighting the Spaniards in small rebellions was nonsensical and only made everything worse. Of course, fortune is a woman, right? That's what it is. She said, stop fighting, let's sit down and eat, right? That's what she thinks is going to make everything better, of course. You know what I'm saying? Like, women, they good for that. They needed for that. This just not the time for that right now. This just ain't the time, right? Because they don't want to eat. They want to get fat. You know what I'm saying? And I don't mean like physically fat. I mean fat off of the land, right? They wanted to get that. That's what they want. They were greedy, right? So it was never going to be enough to satisfy them. So they would pay tribute. That started off as tribute. Oh wait, why you got a gold earring? You know what I'm saying? They got a whole big storehouse full of gold. Why you got a gold earring? It's like you holding out. Let me get that too. You know what I'm saying? It never was enough. They wanted all of it. All right. You should, though many might see her policies as weak and cowardly, they were in fact what a good politician and analyst would have done. Of course, they're gonna agree with that, right? When it's better than die to be a slave. Sorry. I know it sucks, but it's better to die than be a slave. They get forced to do, like, because even though I'm sure they didn't follow their laws, but there were certain things they were able to do freely that they weren't forced to do. Like, I'm sure, like, because I know all of, like, the Native Americans, they didn't eat things like pork. They didn't eat shrimp, crab legs. They didn't eat none of these things. The only thing they ate was, they typically, most of them ate lawful foods. Of course, you can find the small occasion, but typically, most of them ate lawful foods. Because this was part of their culture, right? All right. Okay. Anaconda knew very well that although they outnumbered the Spaniards, the latter had better weapons than the Taino, who wouldn't be able to compete against. As she saw it, rebelling against the invaders would be like signing a death sentence. So instead, she decided to play the diplomatic card and started building a relationship of integration. That's the death of our people, integration. This was achieved through intermarriages between Taino royalty and high-ranking soldiers. However, this relative submission wouldn't last very long. So it still didn't work. In 1502, Spain named a new governor of Hispaniola, Nicolas de Ovando, who had very different ideas about how to exploit the island. For Ovando, the most dangerous local was in fact Anaconda. He was sure that her charms, through her charms, she had been seducing Spaniards and making them submit to her. So of course she had to be gone if he wanted his plans to succeed. To do so, he suggested a peace treaty which she had to gather with among 80 of the most influent Taino. So they wanted to do a peace treaty, right? He said this woman, she got to be gone, right? Because she said that because of course, you know, she's a black, you know, she's an Israelite woman. So of course she's probably beautiful, right? And they women that's ugly and look like, look like what's them pugs when they get old. That's how they look when they get old, right? That's how they women look. And I'm not even talking about old like 60. I'm talking about 35, right? I ain't even talking about old like 70s and 80s. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about 35. They start looking like that. Eyes start getting sunken in, all that, right?
Lock out when they started getting them little black spots all around. I mean, you know.
Start looking like hell, right?
Okay.
So they look at her like she might have been 35 and she still, well no, she was actually younger. They killed her, she died at 29. So they look at her like, this is a beautiful woman. So I'm sure they wanted her. And she, you know, she being an Israelite woman, she using that to her advantage, right? She using that to her advantage, trying to save her people, right? She's trying to do the right thing. She's just a woman, so she can't, like, women don't see war the same way as men, of course, right? We're not the same. So she's trying to think everything is better if you just try to get along with everybody. But we as men, like, you have somebody messing with your son, you tell him he got to fight that person. Mother, not all mothers, of course, I'm just saying, you would more try to say, you know, try to see what's going on, try to do all this, try to come a diplomatic route. No, you go say, no, I'm going to show you how to fight and whoop his behind.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like I said, this is not all women, of course, this is general, right? And I know this one right here crazy. You know what I'm saying? At any rate. But, you know, that's more of a general thing a lot of times what happens with women. They'll be like, you know, they don't want to buck up too hard against the system, right? That's why men are here. That's why we here for. We supposed to be the rebels, right?
Right.
All right. So he did this peace treaty. She had to gather 80 of the most influence, the people that had the most influence. The Tainos had the most influence, right? This naturally, of course, was a setup, right? While the Taino were talking and suggesting strategies to have a friendly relationship with the invaders, while avoiding complete submission, a Spanish army entered the building. Oh, let's then keep refreshing this. One second. A Spanish army entered the building. The most prominent figures were taken outside, and the building was set up in flames, killing all those people inside. Those who were separated were tortured and forced to declare against Anacaona. She faced a public trial and was sentenced to hang for treason. And this is where the story becomes more of a legend. This is what they say, but here's what happened. This is what his sister did. Right before being hanged. Now I will give his sister, she gets her props for this, right? Before she was hanged, right? She would be granted clemency if she agreed to become a concubine for one of the high-ranking officials. You ain't gotta die, sis. What's up? You ain't gotta die. Just come and get this whenever I want it, right? You ain't gotta die. However, she said, hell no. And she refused it and she got hung. She chose death over dishonor.
Damn right.
So she did not want to lower herself to being with a dog. That's a strong sister right there. She didn't care how powerful they were. She said, I'd rather die than be a dog's chew toy, whatever the hell, right? As for Ovando, things didn't go as well as he envisioned. His cruel and bloodthirsty methods reached Queen Isabella of Castile, who, despite being no saint, was a rather emotional person, of course, the woman, and dismissed the greedy governor. Still, the damage was done. When Columbus had set foot in Hispaniola, the local population had reached more than 500,000, but when Ovando was dismissed as governor, it had reduced to 60,000. See, it was that many people. Now, these numbers, it was millions of Tainos there. But they had reduced their population to 60,000 people because of these bastards here that came here. An interesting story was, Masha Allah heard it, but basically, like, Christopher Columbus and his brothers, they got arrested for crimes against humanity. Guess what happened to them? They allowed them to come back. That's what it's like, a police officer, right? You go kill 100 black people, nah, you just go to a different island. That's what they had them do. They had them go to a different island. You can't go to Hispaniola, you got to go to somewhere else. But they allowed him to come back. And he supposedly was arrested. So that shows you the only people that really get arrested for crimes is black and Hispanic.
Right.
They try to say black and Hispanics do the crimes. No, that is not true. Black and Hispanic get put in jail for their crimes, for all of their crimes. These devils, they don't get put in jail for their crimes. You go out drinking right now, you have your kids, they 13 years old drinking and driving. What's going to happen to them? Maybe not 13, maybe 16, 17, right? Let's say they drinking and driving. What's going to happen to them?
Going to jail.
Exactly. And who else going to probably go to jail?
You stupid.
The parents.
Yeah, okay.
You know what happens to devils when they do these things?
Slightly, sir.
Okay.
Their parents already have their lawyers ready, and if they don't do any time, nothing. And their lawyer.
That's if it gets that far.
Right. Yeah, you're right. If it gets that far, they have the lawyer to, make it disappear like it never happened.
That's if it, like I said, that's if it gets that far.
Right.
A lot of times, what happens is they come get the kids, pick them up, and take them home to their parents. Right? Because they friends with the police officers. Because the police officers ain't oppressing them. They protect and serve them. Police officers are really, they don't tell you this, but police officers are really put there to keep the criminals, they consider us the criminals, to keep them in their area, and the rich people or the devils in their area, and keep us away from each other. That's really what the police is for, right? It's not to protect and serve. Well, it is for them. For us, it's to oppress, right? And that's why, like, the strongest thing we as black people can do is just be blameless. Don't do any crimes. Right? That's what you got to do. I remember we was at camp the other day, right? I think it was Saturday. A cop said, he asked us, like, y'all here every Saturday, right? And he was saying, we guess we're going to leave since he make y'all uncomfortable. And I looked at him and said, we not uncomfortable. We don't commit no crimes. We not worried about it. If we go to jail, we gonna get off. Because we don't do any crimes. Right? But, they really there for the drug dealers. We be going in on the drug dealers out there. Selling it, selling poison to their brothers. Right? Let's see. Alright, now it's Anaconda. She was only 29 years old when she was hanged, and even though she wasn't able to stop the invaders, she acquired the status of one of the founders of Haiti and a symbol of rebellion and pride. She might not be the classic rebel we read about in novels or textbooks, but there's no doubt she was a committed leader who did everything in her power to avoid as much suffering to her people as she could. Perhaps the most important and interesting thing about Anaconda is the fact that she's one of the few women in history who has always been recognized as a leader and a crucial figure in history despite her gender, something that wasn't and still isn't common in our society. So now, of course, you got to go to the feminist thing. Now, this ain't true amongst Israelites. Y'all notice we got stories of Esther, Susanna, Judith, the one, since I don't think they gave her a name, that the one that was in the second Maccabees, where they killed all her 7 sons and her. Right? We talk about the women that did powerful things. We talk about it. That's their culture, because they hate women. They the ones that really hate women, right? You know how you can tell they hate women? They set you up for destruction. They like they women to be whores, right? They know that it destroys women to be a whore. It destroys their mentality. Now, if you be given to too many men, what you gonna do when you actually get your own man? You're not gonna be able to deal with him, cause you're gonna think about all them other men that you done had. Why you think like the people that's hardest to get like couples is the ones to be a couple is the ones that had the most people that they mess with, right? I mean, it goes for men too. It's part of it. It just doesn't affect us to the extent of it does that it does women. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't affect us as much. So when women, what happens if they had a certain amount? What happened to the women that you know that was the hoes in school?
Like you said, it's hard for them. Even the ones that, you know, would say they turn their life around or changed or whatever and want to settle down, want to have a husband and have it's hard for them to adapt to that.
It is. Like, it's like what the Most High say, when you lay with your woman, y'all become one. Now you one with 100 men. So you crazy as hell. The most whorest women be the most craziest women. You got all them spirits of men and they fighting. They fight each other. You know what I'm saying? One blood, one crip, they fight each other. Right? That's what's going on. Right? I think David said, I think I see the study that the less relations a woman has before she gets married, the better, the longer relationship, sure the relationship lasts. The more that she has, the shorter it lasts. Right? Because you're not taught to actually live and deal with somebody. Now you think of people as replaceable. Right? And that's an evil thought right there. None of y'all is replaceable. You know what I'm saying? Israelites are not replaceable. You know what I'm saying? Your husband and your wife is not replaceable. Right? Alright. Any questions on that? We good? I was with the scripture breakdown for a minute, not history class. It's a lot here. See here. Alright. Let's see here. Let's see here. Alright. We got a couple more articles to break out. We can close this out. Every cup, I got a bottle of water about the shelf. Boy, this some hell, boy. This gonna be like, when y'all read these stories, it makes y'all have a very different, like, we all have a different opinion of these devils, right? Just being the truth. But like, goddamn, what they do, it is sickening. What? All right. Okay. Alright, on his first, this is talking about Christian Columbus. On his first day in the New World, he ordered 6 of the natives to be seized, writing in his journal that he believed they would be good servants. Throughout his years in the New World, Columbus enacted policies of forced labor in which natives were put to work for the sake of profits. Later, Columbus sent thousands of peaceful Taino Indians from the island of Hispaniola to Spain to be sold. Many died en route. So those your brothers getting sold. So they were taking people there, and they were taking people back here. So they weren't stopping. Like I said, Africa. They weren't going to Africa to about the 1600s, like really in mass. Of course, there was a couple here and there, but they really started grabbing them around the 1600s. The 1500s was just grabbing black people from Europe and taking them in to all the different islands, making them slaves. Because remember, we were ruling in Europe, right? And when we lost power, where did all those black people go? They brought them here. You know what I'm saying? So, but they try to say Africa because they don't want you to be able to trace that you was ruling in Europe. Like, what was her sister, Catherine? Her name was Catherine, like she was a nobility in Europe. That was a black woman. I think it was one they nicknamed him the black boy because he was so black, he was so dark. They called him the black bastard. He was that dark. So it was people real. I think it was Charles, King Charles. He was a black man. So it was a bunch. We was ruling. So we were ruling. We obviously had other black people there. You can't be in rulership, or at least not to the kingdom, over a whole other nation of people. You're the only one of your nation there. That ain't gonna work, right? So obviously had to be other black people there. So that's where they brought them in from as slaves, where they took us over. All right. See here. Everything good over there, Marshall?
Kind of, sir. No. They just want to run through the light.
I guess.
You know how they do.
But if you run the
Oh.
right?
Lottie, you going to jail and ain't gonna be on 3 years probation.
Exactly. They just turn their lights on just so they can run it.
Come.
They ain't in no hurry. They just didn't want to wait. Well, I ain't want to wait either. You know what I'm saying? You working. You ain't got nowhere you got to be. Why can't I turn my flashers on and go through the light? I could look and see if it's a car, right?
I'm trying to hear that.
All right. Let's see here. Okay. Now, here's what they use. They use it the Columbian Exchange, where they describes the exchange of plants and animals and goods between the East and the West. That is voyages sparked. So they were trying to exchange goods from those different places. Though the effects were widespread and cannot all be dismissed as negative, critics of Columbus have asserted that the worst aspects of this exchange added up to biological warfare. So some of this exchange they were exchanging was those diseases that they had, biological warfare. Eventually, his methods and actions caught up with Columbus. A number of settlers lobbied against him at the Spanish court, accusing Columbus of mismanagement. That's the word they called it, mismanagement. Right? In 1500, the king and queen sent in a royal administrator who detained Columbus and his brothers and had them shipped home. Although Columbus regained his freedom and made a fourth and final voyage to the New World, he had lost his governorship and much of his prestige. But he still was able to come back. Right? After he did all of that hell, he able to come right on back. Right? This historical record has cast Columbus' legacy under a cloud of controversy. Protests at Columbus Day parades, efforts to eliminate him from classroom curricula, and calls for a change in the federal holiday have all followed. Beginning in 1991, dozens of cities in several states began adopting Indigenous Peoples Day, a holiday that celebrates the history and contributions of Native Americans rather than Columbus. Some things I learned that was kind of interesting that came from the Tainos, like the canoe, that's a Taino word, hurricane, and you know what else a Taino word?
What's that?
Barbecue. That's Taino right there. That's black people right there, ain't it? That's their word, barbecue. Right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Cause they love, we love to put some barbecue up, chill and eat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is, truthfully, what is barbecuing?
Just Salaki, you just put meat over fire.
It's a meat offering.
Mm.
That's all it is. It's a meat offering. We had the grill right there in the temple.
Mm.
You would grill it up and feed the people. Same thing.
Oh wow.
That's what we did. That's what you think the Feast of First Fruits is. That way everybody could eat. The whole nation of Israel could eat. Y'all get that?
Makes sense now. I don't want it to make sense.
Yep. And that's why you had that feast. Everybody was to bring their first fruits that came. And I think we feast on for 7 days.
Mm.
Everybody have a whole week, even the poor, eat good. Y'all even know about the law that if you have like a vineyard, and you know what's the difference between a vineyard and a garden, right? You do?
So like the vineyard is the grapes, you growing the grapes for the wine?
Nah. That is part of it, but that's not what the difference in the Bible is.
No.
All right? A vineyard, garden is what you make for yourself. So you have like a garden in your backyard, that's for yourself. A vineyard is what you make to sell. It's your business. So if you have a business, you have to leave if you're trying to sell the grapes, right? So you could go take it to the wine press and make wine out of it, right? You gotta take the grapes off. But no, the Most High said at the edges of the fences, you have to leave that for the poor to eat, so they can eat something, right? You can't sell everything that you make. It's hard. You have to give some of it to the poor. Israel took care of their poor. See, even during this time, the Native Americans, they didn't have poor people like that. Of course, they had people of nobility and all of that. They might have had some fancy stuff, but everybody ate well. Everybody did well. They didn't have you didn't have, how we go downtown and you got people just talking to themselves. You didn't have that. Right? And the ones that might have been crazy, because there's going to be people that have mental illnesses. That's just the way it's going to be. But they took care of those people. That any mental deficiencies, they took care of them. Right? Of course, autism isn't a new condition. Of course, you know that, right? It's not nothing new under the sun. Mm-hmm. So if you had a brother or sister that was autistic, they just say, okay, he just not the same as everybody else. You just took care of him, right? Teach him what you could, you know what I'm saying? There's always levels of it. Some can be somewhat functioning, some cannot. Some eventually can be taught to be functioning. You know how it all goes. So. But we took care of our people. All right? See, I think there's something I want to bring over here. So y'all gonna go celebrate Columbus Day? And you know how we during camp we had a Santa Claus hanging. I think during Columbus Day, we should have Columbus hanging. Salakia. I think that's what we should have hanging. This bastard right here. This bastard right here need to hang, man.
Damn right.
Like, what the hell did he cause on our people, man? Like I said earlier, man, Osama bin Laden, look up to him, talking about killing people. How many people did he set up to kill? Millions. Millions of people he set up to get killed. He set up a whole slavery of a whole nation of people. The whole nation of Israel, he set up to be slaves. And the said something I'm supposed to. And the crazy part is, he found this land by reading the Bible. You know I can prove it, right?
Kind. So they tell you Christopher Columbus found land because he got lost.
Yeah.
He just happened to just run into the land and come out and start passing everybody turkeys and all that stuff.
Yep. Let me see. I'll show you. All right. It's funny how Wikipedia worked, though. You know how people can go in there and edit, right? There was a man. Let me see if they still got it, just in case. Let me see. The man that came with him was Luis de Torres. He was a translator. He spoke Hebrew. That's how they were able to speak to the Hispanics, right? Let me see here. He died. He was one of those 30-some odd men that was left when he had the shipwreck. Okay. Let me see if I can find it where it says it over here. But basically, all right. The story of De Torres addressing a native tribe in Hebrew after Columbus's first landfall in San Salvador was a product of Columbus's writings. De Torres is also to have believed discovered the Turkey and named it after the Hebrew Tuki, which means parrot, of the Bible. Though this is highly likely because the bird is referred to as pavo, turkey, in Arabic. Still, another legend has him return to Spain and smoke tobacco there, which he was later accused by witchcraft by the Inquisition. Let me see, give me 1 second. Let me see if I can find it. Okay. One way you can find it, if you look up the movie 1492, talking about Christopher Columbus, he says it right in the movie. He said Ezra, you know Ezra is Esdras in the Bible, the same person. Ezra, when you look in the book of Esdras, right, it tells that there was other land out here. Okay, here we go, right here. Second Ezra, let's see here. Well, I hate when what's the name does this. Like it will say a part of it in Wikipedia when you go Google it, and then what it would do is it would when you go to pull it up, it won't show exactly what you was reading at. It shows something else. But basically it's saying that Christopher Columbus, he quoted verse second Ezra 6:42, which describes the earth as being created with 6 parts land and 1 part water. Okay, somebody can get that verse from me?
What verse is that one?
Second Ezra 6:42.
Con. The book of Esdras, the book of Second Esdras, chapter 6 and verse 42. Upon the 3rd day, thou didst command that the water should be gathered in the 7th part of the earth. 6 parts hast thou dried up and kept them, to the intent of these some being planted of the Most High until might serve thee.
So he said on the 3rd day, right? He commanded the water should be gathered to the 7th part of the earth. 6 parts have though he dried up 6 parts. They looking like, you don't even know what 5, right? So he said we need to find it. There's other land out here. So that's why he had to go find it. Try to see. I don't think I'll be able to find it in the next couple seconds, but yeah, that's where it even says it there on Wikipedia that he quoted that Bible a lot. He quoted the Bible a lot, talking about all of the stuff, talking about the same thing that we brought out about the Bible is how the Israelites got here, right?
Okay.
Let's see here. Okay, well you see here too. All right. The same year that the last of the Muslims were forced out of Spain by the Crusaders, Christopher Columbus set sail for America. This same year, the Spanish Inquisition began. While this all is significant, first Christopher Columbus was a Jew, of course a fake Jew. Throughout his life, Columbus showed a keen interest in the Bible and Bible prophecy. He would often quote biblical texts in his letters and in his ship logs. He was a converso, which means he converted to Christianity, right? Part of the argument that a book he submitted to the Spanish monarch when he sought for support in a proposed expedition to reach the Indies by sailing west was based on the reading of the sacred book of Esdras 6:42. Columbus interpreted this scripture from the Bible to mean that the earth is made up of 6 parts of land and 1 of water. The then world maps only show 5 continents. So Christopher reasoned from the scriptures there was another continent missing on the world maps. So he thought traveling the west, he would discover this missing continent. If you read the quotes of Columbus, he said he did not use science, navigation, or mathematics, but the scriptures as his guide. The calculus got a 100-year start on evangelism of South and Central America because they did not reject the Apocrypha from the scriptures as the Protestants did. Because you all know that before, like a lot of like the Apocrypha was always with the Bible until right around the 1800s. That's when it really got separated out the Bible for good. Of course, like you had times the Protestants, they didn't accept it, so it was like a come and go type of thing. But it got pretty much permanently gone after right around 1800 sometime. Alright. Towards the end of his life, Columbus produced a book of prophecies in which his career as an explorer is interpreted in the light of a Christian eschatology and apocalypticism. Right? So that just shows you that it's well known that he knew that it was more land out here because the Bible said it.
It said that he produced a book of prophecies. He got these prophecies from the Bible.
I haven't read on the book of prophecies, but he made a lot of diaries. In his diaries, it would tell you that he used the Bible to find this land. They don't they don't want you to know that because it's proof. There's another book called Lost Tribes and Promised Lands. I might bring this next week, and it would show that they spoke the Native Americans, the Reuben and Gad, they spoke in Hebrew to each other. And then they say we got our brother Ephraim on the island nearby. So, and I think this was I think they were in Florida or something like that. And that's when he said that to him. But he spoke it in Hebrew. Right? Somebody about to say something? Everybody good on the conference call?
Good.
Alright, so I'm gonna try to find that, and I'll probably try to bring that with the next class. So that there's a lot of knowledge out here that people know that these are the 12 tribes. Like I said, I'm not gonna do a 12 tribe breakdown. That's already been done. I can't compete with 300 slides. I can't compete with that, right? He put it together. It took him. He did that lecture in 3 hours, but he said he had 14 hours of material, right? And he had to condense it down to 3 hours, and he was running through it quickly, and it still took 3 hours. Shalom Shabbat. Who was that?
This is Officer 50 Yashua checking in for a conference call from the headquarters of New York.
Okay, I'm saying correct.
Shalom, Yahweh, Kirel Shabbat. Officer Shabbat, Taino, checking in out of Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C. Yeah, we got people all over.
Pop y'all
Go ahead.
on. Go checking in. We got a conference call at 9. That's why they called me in for the Passover.
Oh, crap. All right, Salakia. This is our class that we use. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. All right? Any questions on that at all? We good? Everybody to out? All right, then. I'm going to go ahead and the brothers that was on this conference call for class, you can go ahead and sign out. This is for they got to use this line for, I think, a Passover council. So y'all go ahead and sign out. All right, I think Mawasar was over here. Y'all go ahead and clear out, all right? All right, with that, Shalom, Yahweh, Shem, Shabbat, all right? And with that, I'll pass the class over to the priest and officer, Masha.